Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. This is your host, Erin Bradley, and welcome to the show. If it's your first time here, welcome aboard. You're in for a great show today. And if you've been listening for a while, you know I love and appreciate you coming back and sharing this podcast with all your friends so we can help more people on a journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. So before we jump into today's amazing show, I wanted to take a moment and check in with you as you're listening to this. Whenever you're listening to it, we're going to be releasing this early in the second quarter of 2026. And we've been doing a lot of checking in inside of our communities, the collective and the academy, to ask ourselves, where are you in your journey? You know, what did you set out to experience in 2026? What did you want to be different? What did you want to let go of at the end of 2025? And what did you want to bring in to your life and business in 2026? And how's that working out for you? A lot of times we find ourselves knowing that we're called to more, but we get caught up in our heads and we resist and we hesitate and we second guess. And what we have found to be true 100% of the time is that the antidote to this bottleneck that we all experience that is triggered by the job of the brain, which is to be afraid of change, because the brain's job is to keep you safe or keep you sane. And so when we feel that itch, that call to more, our brain is going to do whatever it takes to keep us safe or keep us sane. And so the way that we move through and we expand beyond the limits of the mind is to get in the room with the people that remind you of your future. And so this is another invitation for you to join us inside the Pursuing Freedom community. There are so many ways in which we can meet you where you are. And it's myself and a community of coaches and guest experts that will help you navigate expansion in all areas of your life, from financial mindset to all the way to strategies and systems and scale and everything in between. So hop over to pursuingfreedom.com, check out the training and consulting section, download the free assessment on evaluating where you are with happiness and fulfillment in your own life and business, and just get in the room because we're having a blast and we're experiencing incredible growth and transformation. So with no further ado, let's talk about our guest today, Pam Goodwin. Oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. So I met Pam recently when I was speaking at a women's real estate investing conference in Florida, hosted by the amazing Beth Azor. And I took pages of notes listening to Pam as she spoke on stage about her journey into commercial real estate investing. And one of the things that struck me was when she mentioned she had no money when she started. And I know that this podcast was originally designed to help real estate agents and mortgage lenders with your strategy, your systems, and your scale. But ultimately, if you've ever experienced burnout, you know that to just trade hours for dollars indefinitely is not sustainable, nor is it desirable, nor is it enjoyable. And so I love bringing on different guests that can share their journey in the investment space where they turn their active dollars into passive so they can truly be free. And Pam is unapologetic in her desire to live a full life without excuses, never give up, and find a way to create results in every area of her life and business. So she has authored several books. Blaze Your Own Trail is the most recent one, Winning Ways in Commercial Real Estate. She even wrote a book about going from selling 1 cent lemonade to $1 million deals. And she's the founder and CEO of Goodwin Commercial, based in Dallas, Texas, which is an award-winning boutique commercial real estate company and consulting firm specializing in single-tenant net leased properties, which she'll explain in our conversation that we're jumping into here. And with more than 3 decades of experience in development, buyer tenant representation, project management, leasing, property development, 1031 exchanges, due diligence, and entitlements, and beyond, she is a wealth of knowledge and her energy is just contagious. So with no further ado, let's jump right into the amazing story that is Pam Goodwin, because there's just so much you have to share with our audience, and we only have so much time. So we always kind of start from the beginning. Pam, tell us a little backstory about how you got started, how you found your way into this world of investing, and then also how the journey has unfolded to where you are today, because you are not only creating amazing success for yourself, but you're also an incredible example and mentor and inspiration to everyone who gets the opportunity to know you. So I'm just so excited to have you here on the show.
Ah, thanks, Erin. And it was so great to meet you a few weeks ago at seeing all those 250 women investing in some format of real estate. It's like, compared to when I got started, I don't even want to say 30 plus years ago, a long time ago. But I thought I wanted to do hotel interior design and ended up getting my degree from Nebraska, University of Nebraska in interior design. Got a job offer at JW Marriott in Bethesda, turned it down and stayed to work as an office developer. And then had always worked on a large shopping center development, helping tenants, move into the mall. And it's kind of sad to see what's happening to the malls these days. But when I started my career, some of the biggest, most successful malls were happening, and that was the way to go. And then from Omaha, went to Baltimore, moved to Los Angeles, and now here based in Dallas, and ended up working on I thought it was important. I always think it's important to always work for the top number one best company. So, going back, hotel design at the time, JW Marriott was number one, wanted to work for the number one shopping center developer, was lucky enough to get a job with a Han company based in San Diego, and then wanted to learn more on the tenant side and found one of the largest real estate companies in the world at the time, Brinker International, who owned 7 different restaurant concepts. And I was on the Chile side doing what they call property development manager. After the real estate manager found the location, property development, I would say, did the hard work of doing all the 80 pages of due diligence, meeting with the city. I did more than 50 of these from the ground up, so all the P&Z city council. And then overall, I got tired of making other people money and started my own company 20 years ago, Goodwin Commercial, in which we specialize in single tenant net lease assets, developing and investing in those.
All right, so let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, I like to say, let's talk like we're with the kindergarten class because not everyone has even begun to understand what's possible in the commercial real estate world. And funny enough, because I came up in the mortgage side of the business, I became an accidental real estate investor with residential, where we, had our first primary residence, which was a $95,000 one-bedroom row home. And then we kept that when we bought a little 1,200 square foot 3-bedroom. And, the first kid was born. And then we bought the third one. And we just did a lot of that buy and hold, and then found our way into long-term rentals, short-term rentals, house hacking, BRRRR. And a lot of our audience is, on that residential side of the real estate space. I mean, certainly plenty of real estate investors listening as well. But funny enough for me, I remember falling into a community of commercial investors maybe 6, 7 years ago, and just starting to have my mind blown wide open around the possibility that larger scale investments that present larger returns can also be done with less stress and less headache because of these single tenant investments like you're talking about, being potentially less management, if you will, than say having a long-term renter in a residential property. And so I've personally been fascinated about commercial investing, and I felt like when I met you at the Women's Real Estate Investing Summit, you really presented a unique perspective around the way that you've done it and the type of commercial investing you've done. And it totally has my wheels turning. So I guess what I'm asking is, let's back up a little bit and kind of talk through what that means and your niche, and then talk us through what it looked like to launch into that coming out of being an employee for other large developers.
I don't think a lot of people realize, when they're sitting at Chick-fil-A or having a cup of coffee at Starbucks or even McDonald's, that a lot of private people own the land and then the tenant is leasing that. So those national tenants will pay you anywhere from 60,000 to, we did a Walgreens deal and they were paying us $492,000 a year for rent, but we did have to build the building for them. That's why that was expensive. But a lot of, McDonald's is one of the largest real estate companies in the world. But a lot of these tenants will let a person like myself or you, Erin, go, have 1 acre of property that you find and then do some marketing and see which one of those tenants would like to lease the land from you. I don't know if that's a simple way to do it. And then, like you said, I never wanted to get into termites and toilets. So these single tenant are really good because they're called triple net, most of them, where the tenant is paying you, the landlord, the rent, and then they're taking care of all of the triple nets stand for, the common area maintenance, taxes, and insurance. So as the landlord, you're collecting that mailbox money, and they're very nice assets. And especially for beginners in commercial real estate, it's a really good way and can be a low entry point to get into some of these.
So I know you are pretty geographically focused. So what's your perspective on identifying opportunities as it relates to where you live geographically versus, people looking in different regions of the country where opportunities may exist that perhaps are less expensive than where they live, for example? Like what are the pros and cons of investing in your backyard, I guess, regardless of the price points versus being more strategic about where in the country you look?
So we're based here in Dallas, Texas, and I always advise anybody, Dallas, I have not, in my 20 years of owning my own business, maybe one time, but as far as buying property in the Dallas market, I always find it beneficial. And what I learned from doing the Chili's days about going out 1 hour, an hour and a half from the large metroplex and in the tertiary markets is where you can find some amazing opportunities, and those sellers are much better to work with. So, for example, in Bonham, Texas, an hour northeast of us, I went to go meet with I always advise to go look at, the economic development director, find that out in your city. And so in this case, went to go meet with them. And I have a list of 10 questions, and I'm happy to share it with your viewers. But one question is, does a city have any property that you happen to be selling? And this city did, in a prime retail area, 6 acres, and they let us put it under contract for a really good price and gave us the time to work on it.
So when you're saying this, you're buying the land and then a tenant, for example, like Starbucks, would be leasing the land, but they handle the construction expense of building the property on the raw land.
Correct, yes.
And then do they also handle all the entire process of getting access to the water and the electric, or in any capacity is the landowner participating in that process?
Only it depends on what you negotiate in the or in the lease contract. Most of the time there's different ways, but sometimes you have to deliver utilities within 5 feet of the building. Sometimes you just have to deliver it to the property line. Sometimes, lease it to them as is. So it just kind of depends on how you negotiate that with them.
So have you ever invested with the company that you have now in existing structures that you then find a tenant for, or have you always done land purchase that is leased out to national brands?
Good question. I've done a variety of them, but that's a redevelopment deal. For example, we found an existing old piece of junk building second to the hard corner, and then I found out the seller was selling both of them. The one on the hard corner had a national tenant, and then the property next door was vacant, and I was interested in the vacant building, and it turns out he was selling both of them, which was a great deal. And so that one we actually bought as a redevelopment property, and then we ended up getting Mattress Firm on a 10-year ground lease. But I rarely, with my business partners I've had on my projects, rarely close on a property unless I have a tenant in tow, as they say. Just recently closed on a bank building in Birmingham, Alabama. That was vacant Regents bank building, and we went out, to market it, and we ended up flipping it to a credit union.
Okay, so here's a question for you. How did you identify the property in Birmingham then versus something that's an hour outside of Dallas?
I actually get properties all over the country, and the business partner that I team up with quite a bit on deals, she actually found it and then brought it to me. Because once you get on people's list, you get, I mean, you just start seeing properties all over.
Okay.
I mean, I helped a friend buy a piece of property in Jacksonville, Florida, for her to open up a restaurant. So I can, work on deals throughout the country.
All right, so bring us back to the humble beginnings because you said something on stage at the at the conference that had me laughing so hard when somebody asked you, I forget if they asked you for your business card or they asked you something and you said, "Don't you know who I am?" So like we know you're a big deal now, Pam, but like bring us back to the humble beginnings because if someone like I was telling Beth at the event, I came obviously to deliver the keynote, but I felt more like a student and a sponge than anything because I was just so amazed by the brilliance of the women in the room and the amount of things I was learning personally. And I'm always thinking like the listener who's like, yeah, but how do I get started? Because we're looking at somebody on chapter 10 and maybe we're here on chapter 1. So talk us through what the process looked like when you thought to yourself, you know what? I'm making all these people money. I'm going to go do it myself. How do you even get started? Like, what's the first step?
I know that's so funny, but I actually said in my breakout session, this is, after years, but when they ask you for your proof of funds, which is kind of more common in residential than in commercial, but I've been asked in the 20 years, maybe only a couple times for proof of funds. And that's when I said, don't you know who I am? I mean, kind of course, joking, but and then just quiet. I mean, that shut them up and they never asked again. So I use that line every single time. And I have not to this day ever have had to use proof of funds. And I think that's where especially women, they just have such fear of getting started. Even my group of 75 women in my group here in Dallas, all doing real estate, people trying to overcome that fear. And that's why I always believe in like going to Beth's event, collaborating. You heard on stage how many people collaborate with other people and using their strengths and weaknesses on those properties to acquire and to get started. I know Beth gave me a hard time of not using, I always talk about, OPM, other people's millions. And I've, uh, I've always found a way. That's my hashtag, find a way on, I don't want to say using other people's money because sometimes it does. I had to put a piece of property under contract, probably cheaper than most women's purse. I put a property under contract, an existing vacant Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC for $500 under contract. And I would hope most people could find $500, even if you practically go borrow it for friends and family is another way. You just have to be in the room with other people doing it. I've 250 people in that room. I think I've had maybe 6 or 7 contact me to take action. And I'm so grateful that you called and asked, to be on your podcast. But look at the opportunity. All of, so many women I think are approachable, but you've got to take that action. Call them, go meet with them, come fly to Dallas. Don't buy me a cup of coffee to pick my brain, not to be, but I'm kind of more of a, let's say, steak and lobster person if you want to pick my brain.
I love that.
Take me to a ball game, I love sports, so take me to a ball game, and then just start all about relationships like you talked about in the mortgage business. It's all about relationships and taking action.
I love that. So I do remember you saying something from stage about, I think I actually wrote it down because you said something like, I didn't have any money when I got started. And I think that's one of the big misnomers. So like, what does that even mean that you put a property under contract for $500? Like, So you're obviously getting, I assume that means you're getting some financing from commercial bank, but then also you're, like you said, possibly borrowing money or you're getting investors, or how does that work in terms of using other people's money?
I would say, as you mentioned, what is the first step? I would say the first step is to go get a business card, put your name on it, call yourself real estate investor, real estate developer with your phone number on it. And you can do that on Vistaprint for, I'm not endorsing them, but I go through them a lot. They'll even design a free logo for you. So there's no excuses. That's my other favorite quote. You either have excuses or results, but not both. Go get those $10 business cards and call yourself a real estate investor and let it sink in and start handing out your cards. And then because the money, I always say this, the money, and a lot of people will, and you heard it, but the money, it really is the easiest part of the deal of any transaction. I could post it on LinkedIn and have all these people wanting to loan me money. I could go to an event. I have women that contacted me and say, "Hey, Pam, if you got a deal, I want to invest with you." So the money is there. And now I'm on like, oh my God, I got to hurry up and go find, a deal. And that's why you just need, bird dogs out there saying, "Hey, I saw vacant Burger King, or it's about to close. It looks like it's a great hard corner. I actually know the seller. What can we do with it? We can put it under contract together, give you ownership in it, and I can show you how to, find a tenant and market it."
So
I
is
know it
that
sounds easier, but it does take time. It does take time. It's not that easy. Like in my breakout session or when I speak, my motto is just everything is for sale. It's just a matter of time and money.
Yeah. So do you feel that the greatest way for people to learn is to go into a deal partnering with a mentor, or did you hire mentors and coaches, or did you learn everything by doing because you came out of being an employee of that larger organization?
So it was really tough giving up that six-figure income, all the free food I wanted at Maggiano's and Chili's and on the border, macaroni and grill. And I think my family, my husband and two boys were like, "Mom, don't quit. We like that free food you bring home." But anyways, I ended up finding a mentor and found someone who had been developing for a long time. He was in his mid 70s at the time, and I put a business plan together. I'd never put a business plan together, but I'm like, "Hey, these are all the people I know. These are, my contacts, what I can bring to the table." I went to several different landlords that were doing these Chili's deals because I saw Chili's. They own the land, did a 10-year ground lease with them, and then would make, it seemed like, at least 850,000 in profit to a million plus because you're selling the 10-year ground lease to an investor. And I ended up finding a mentor who took me under my wing and who helped me start Goodwin Commercial back in 2006. And I'm forever grateful for him. And he's still my mentor. We still meet a couple times a year, and he turns like 90 years old and he's still in the business. And I owe a lot to him.
I love that. And so, like, talk us through. I know you've published several books, and I'm curious, how did you come to decide to write the books? Talk us through the different ones that you've released, and let's just spotlight them a little bit because I really admire that you not only have the courage to, like you said, take action, no excuses, never give up, like it says behind you, but then to take the time to write the books and give back and be an example and a light for others to believe in what's possible. That's just, it's so incredible. So, can you share a little bit about the books that you've published and what people can expect to find in those books?
Sure. Well, if you've heard of Zig Ziglar,
Yep.
he's based here in Dallas, and I went to an event. I read it in the paper that his granddaughter would be speaking.
Whoa.
And I thought, well, if his granddaughter is speaking, he may be there because it was a small real estate event a long time ago. Sure enough, he was there. And so I went over to talk to him, and he put his arm around me and he said, he's like, have you ever written a book before? And I said, no. He goes, that will give you the most credibility ever. And so I thought, I better listen to Mr. Ziegler.
Wow.
And I had no idea. I had no idea how to do it. And then ended up getting on the company Upwork to help me write it. And my first book was 1 cent lemonade to $1 million deals and 25 jobs and 25 lessons learned. And then I'm a huge fan of Barbara Corcoran. I always go for the top, the number one person.
Mhm.
And I happened to reach out to her to see if she would provide my testimonial for my book. And I just got on her website. Hey, will you meet with me? I mean, I just do a lot of things to challenge because I figure nobody's going to respond, but you'll be surprised of how many people do respond and answer. And her assistant responded, and we worked it out. And I ended up flying to her New York City office and meeting with her one-on-one for 1 hour. And it was going, we had so much fun. It ended up being 2 hours. And she provided the testimonial. But that
I
was,
love that. That is so fun. I can imagine the two of you having a good time together.
I know, I think I, the older I get, I don't get that nervous anymore. But I was just like, I am a beer drinker. My husband drinks wine, I drink beer, but and so when we go to a restaurant, they bring me the wine and him the beer, and we always switch. But she had a bottle of wine at lunch. She's like, I can't drink because I'm going to a meeting, and I don't even drink wine, but I think I drank that whole bottle. And then by the time we left, I was helping one of her Shark Tank, the lobster company. They wanted to go into a shopping mall, and I was helping them. She got them. That's what the number one thing I learned about her. She did not wait to go, oh, I got this Shark Tank and they want to go into a mall and they have a letter of intent. Can you help them? I'll get it to you later. We stopped the meeting, got them on the phone. They're sending me the offer. She wanted me to review it, and I reviewed it for him. And then I ended up, she didn't want him to go into the mall, I could tell, because she was hinting. And then I agreed with her on after reviewing it. But I learned from her that she took immediate action, like did not wait tomorrow, the next day, whatever. She took immediate action. So I learned that from her.
I love that. So, and then you've got two more books, right?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, Pam, how do I get into real estate? So those are both of those books are collaboration books that I feel are some of the top women in commercial real estate on how they started their career. So if you're interested in somehow some format of commercial real estate, the Winning Ways one, the second book, is all about how that started as an interior designer with no experience, an accountant, an architect, just different fields, the secretary to whatever company they were in. And now they're some of the top, most successful women in commercial real estate leaders. And then the third book, I asked all of another group of women, some of them decided to do the second book on 15 questions. I asked them all the same questions, all about commercial real estate. So all three of those are on Amazon. Happy if you want to reach out to me, if you want an autograph. If not, they're all on Amazon for a very reasonable price. Would love a review.
I love that. And something else that I really loved about you and we didn't have enough time, which is what I love about the podcast, is I get to spend more time with people that I respect and admire. But you shared a little bit about your philosophy on life. And here at Pursuing Freedom, the motto is that the goal is to build a life you don't need a vacation from. And, the whole concept of pursuing freedom was born out of the stress that I felt when I was struggling financially didn't feel like freedom. And it didn't feel like freedom when I was making a ton of money, but totally overwhelmed and exhausted. And for me, I've been on a journey for over a decade of really designing a life that's powered by the business. And that requires some bold decisions to be made in the business, even though it feels scary, to make sure that no aspect of my success compromises my ability to be energized and present and focused and enthused and really just say yes to life. And I know you have a similar philosophy, so I would love to hear your perspective because you talked a lot about sort of like living full out, and I really appreciated that message too.
No, thank you. I know my first book with the 25 jobs, I felt like every 2 to 3 years I was switching jobs. I don't know if I'm sure you yourself and viewers can relate, but I know the minute that I dreaded like going to work on Monday, that it's like time for me to start looking for a new job. And then at the time at Brinker also, I had flexibility with the job, but we had two small boys at the time, and I wanted the freedom to be able to go to any of their events and not have that mommy guilt. And that's given, lucky I took that chance, took that risk, but never wanted any regrets. And then, like you said, I've always worked really hard my whole entire life. And I feel like I've been working since selling lemonade at 4 years old. But it did take a toll on my health. And then in 2019, I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer, which was a big wake up call. But turning my pain into passion, like you said, I am living my best life, and I am not waiting for anything to take that travel, go on that travel and to do all that. I know we're planning a out of the country thing in July, and half the people are like, I got to get back to work. And I'm thinking, oh, I can spend, lucky I've kind of set it up where I can, be away and have that freedom, to do that. And so if, it's just having that game plan and knowing your passion, because we both know life is so short. We all hear people passing away at, it seems like younger ages. And now at my age, it even speeds up faster.
Awesome. So I guess along those lines, I'd be curious for one last question is what kind of advice would you give to someone who's listening and they feel like they didn't start soon enough? Like they maybe are hearing, well, you started 30 years ago and maybe it's too late for me. I mean, I know what I think the answer is because we saw the possibilities and the transformation that's happened in a year of people getting information, staying committed to learning, taking action, et cetera. But if someone's listening and they have that kind of like it's that imposter syndrome or that, it's too late for me, what kind of advice would you give?
I didn't start my own business until I'm 61. I mean, I feel younger, but I didn't start until I was, what, 41? And that seems a lot older. I mean, you can see some of the Walt Disneys of the world and the Mary Kays and the KFC Colonel. Skip the age. I mean, don't even think about it. Write down or find some of the people that are doing what you want to do. If you want to invest in hotels, you would go find that person. If you want to go invest in your small town or residential, just start Googling where some of those events are. But, and don't wait until some, health scare that you have, to really, really make. That's one thing I learned is don't wait. It is a wake up call. Don't wait for that to happen. Go do something, skip the age. That's an excuse, you
Mhm.
know, find a way, and never give up is my other hashtag.
I love that. Well, if folks want to find you, connect with you, follow you, where are all the ways they can do so?
Go to my website, pamgoodwin.com, and follow me on LinkedIn. I try to post every single day on LinkedIn for some inspiration or just, what I'm doing or events that I'm attending. And feel free to reach out to me.
I love that. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your energy and your wisdom with us today, Pam.
Well, great. It's great meeting you, and I look forward to us collaborating on a deal. Thanks, Erin.
100%. I know. I'm already waiting to follow up with you to find out what your favorite steakhouse is because I'm going to be in Dallas at an event in 2 weeks.
Oh, good. We have several. I don't know about as good as my good old Nebraska steakhouses, but we have some really good ones in Dallas. Would love that.
I love it. And to all my friends listening, as always, I love and appreciate you. If you found some value in this conversation here today, make sure to text it to a friend, share it online. Make sure to leave that 5-star review because it does help us continue to attract amazing guests like Pam and help this content get found so more people can build a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.